Hello and welcome back. This is the third video, and I'm going to be talking about more so the history and how we got to this point, as well as some myths and how they've been debunked and why, etc. And I was going to go over hypnosis and how it's therefore applied to birth, but going over the history, there are so many things to go over, and it's been lost in translation and it's not talked about with women enough. And so I thought it was really important to go over the history a little bit more in depth. And I can't even go over as much as I would want to because I don't want to bore you and, have an excruciatingly long video. But before the 1700s, it was all midwives. That was the normal expected thing. Midwives developed because it was women who had experience, right? It was elders that had experience from attending so many births and understanding physiology, right? Understanding physical, adaptability, holding on to each other, being supportive, making sure the woman was drinking water. That was the normal. That was the normal. Homeopathy was normal. So then you enter the 1700s and physicians started to occur, right? And physicians were only men, because here we go with that class separation, right? And the issues that were arising were in birth, right, would only happen because of sanitary issues, or I shouldn't say only, but if you look back at history, nutrition was a struggle as well. I mean, clothing, right? Fashion was also an issue. They were using actual drugs, and when they were like testing things out, they were usually using like cocaine in medicine. They were using arsenic on hats and clothing and paper, and it's wild, right? And so, to say the least, that the issues were occurring from like health issues externally, became internally through those influences, right? A very small percentage were maybe like physical anomalies. And even back then in the 1700s, with the record keeping that they had, 95% of the births were still successful. And that's like at least, right? So today we find that's not what's happening. 1716, get this, 1716, New York City was the first state in America to require midwives to have a license. So that happened. And then, now mind you, we're still having 95% success rate with home births, and we didn't even have hospitals at this point, okay? We get to 1752, and in Philadelphia, the Pennsylvania Hospital was the first permanent hospital, and it was opened only to assist and take care of sick people. Pregnant women, birthing women were not even included in that because it wasn't seen as a thing that like needed to be accommodated. It was already accommodated. And now, here's what's crazy. Once you had that hospital open, sorry, I had to scratch my foot. Once you had that hospital open, then you had the first medical school open. And then it started the whole domino effect of needing licenses and, degrees and being, seen as competent. And so literally within 100 to 150 years from that point, men had already infiltrated the birthing atmosphere and like took over. Midwives, because women weren't really allowed to go to school and they weren't seen as like capable of learning because they weren't like smart enough, then midwives became like obsolete because they're like, well, you don't have, like, we know what we're doing. Again, back to what I was saying. You don't have your degree. You didn't go to medical school. So who are you to say that you know what is better? And they, this early on, they already started to use uh, devices. And as men were trying to implement devices, they were still killing babies. They were still doing internal damage to women. And so they were not helping anything. Um, Fast forward up to this point, because they're continuing to do like trial and error. You had the dark ages where they were trying different like pain medications, where that essentially blew up the whole birth defects issue, stillbirths, etc. It was normal for women to be strapped to beds and put to sleep, and you would just birth your baby without being able to like move. Um, Being put to sleep was like the normal. If you asked, and Mickey Mongan talks about this, she wanted to like have a natural birth, and she had to go out of her way so far and demand it. And her third one, she finally got a natural birth. But back to like the progression of history, right? So they're doing the trial and error, and all the way up to this point, right? They're still doing trial and error on drugs, but they don't essentially really tell you. The birthing atmosphere and culture in America is not about informed consent. It's not. Because if it was about informed consent, then doctors and nurses wouldn't have like the holier than thou complex where women have traumatic experiences where it's just they're blindsided, right? You have women walking into the room, they're like, "You haven't progressed yet? Oh my God, you're still stuck." Or you have doctors that are like, no, it's okay. It's normal that women don't know how to do this. There are literal medical books that have warnings, basically warnings to doctors to be cautious about dealing with women who are educated and desire a natural birth. It's crazy. That's crazy that it's literally in writing. Mickey Mungan talks about that. Um, it's in No Birthing International, Birthing Without Fear. Uh, there's so many things that really help you understand this realm better. The biology of belief. Um, I mean, it really blows your mind once you start to dig into it. I mean, it's just like meeting someone off the street and being like, if I give you $1 million, like you'll look out for it, right? Like it's for my family. I'm gonna like pay off my house and everything. Like I worked so hard for it. If you leave them, do you think that you can actually trust them? Maybe they might be like that very rare person, right? But if you can't trust someone with $1 million, why would you trust a random stranger, right? That just because they have a name on a tag with one of the most influential and life-changing, transforming events of your life. Blows my mind. And trust me, I've had a hospital birth. I've had a birth in a birth center, and then I had a home birth. And I tell you, I had women laughing at me because they walked in, and I am buck naked trying to figure out what I'm doing, trying to like move and get more comfortable. And they're walking in, and I said, I don't want any other people coming in the room besides the midwife, the nurse assistant, the doctor, and they just walked in and they literally laughed when I said, "Get." They literally laughed like it's a joke, like it's their entertainment for the day. How disrespectful. So disrespectful. And this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm trying to share vital information so that people can have full knowledge of what they are choosing for themselves and something that is much more respected and honored in other countries. So here's some facts. Ready? Myths. Oh, let me go over some myths, right? Birthing muscles. This is actually a fun one. Birthing muscles are different than other muscles. You would think, you know, this would be talked about, but it's not. So birthing muscles are not different than other muscles. Your heart is a muscle, right? Your intestines, your bladder, and you don't have to be worried about those things working. I'm sitting here, you're sitting there. You're not having to think about your heart pumping, right? You don't have to think about your bladder holding. I mean, yeah, if I'm being honest, us who have babies, if we sneeze, we've got to kind of, cross our legs. But uh, joking aside, you don't have to think about your muscular organs doing their jobs. They do them. The uterus is the same application. The uterus is the same thing. It has 3 layers. All of it works together for what it was designed to do, right? And we go over that in the classes in hypnobirthing, and it's really quite fascinating. So birthing muscles are not different than your other muscular organs. They do what they were designed to do. And when forced with drugs, when you are like induced and stuff like that, they're actually kind of hindered and then confused with like epidural and Pitocin and all that. So we'll get into that. Um, this is a myth with hypnosis, like you're under someone's control or like you're vulnerable to like expose some like personal information. You're not, you are in full control. You decide when you close your eyes, you decide how you breathe, you decide whether or not you're going to full body relax, you decide whether or not you're going to even give consent to do this involved action with this other person. You're Hypnosis, it's a term, right? It's a term used to describe something that you choose to do. Uh, your perineum or your hoo-ha will never be the same. That is not factual. Something that is not talked about is the detail or the very raw experience of birthing and how it fully expands the posterior area of your hoo-ha and your butt area, and so a lot of people don't know that. Hypnobirthing, there's lower risk of damage and everything because you are allowing your body to do what it was designed to do. There's perfect timing of chemicals and hormones released, just like when you fight or flight response or when you get really hurt and you don't feel it. It's same thought, same type of process, if you will. One is like stress induced, but the other is relaxed induced, right? Um, oh, doctors are crucial for a woman to be able to birth her baby. Do you sit there in the bathroom thinking, I need someone to tell me how to poop? I need someone to tell me, like, if I'm doing this right. No, you don't. So if you understand what your body's doing, you mentally, physically, and spiritually are prepared for birth, you will feel the same way. You will feel the same way. Someone will come up to you and you'll be like, let me do my thing, you know? Um, these are fun. The Netherlands have 13% home births. The UK midwives provide most prenatal care and attend births, or assistant births. So most UK births are attended by midwives, which is really cool. No, you're okay. You're okay. This is gonna be a long one, unfortunately, but it's okay. You're right. Love you.
Love you. Love you.
This one's a little bit more depressing. So in the United States, only 1.3% of births are home births. And when you step back, I will have links. I will have links so that if you want to look at information instead of just thinking like this woman is just spewing, nonsense out of her mouth, do your homework. That's what I'm trying to encourage, right? Do your homework. Make sure that you feel like you have your armor on, like you have your army around you, your supporters. Like you go in knowing that you are confident, right? Because it's about you. The United States is last on the list. We are the worst for mortality rates compared to the 10 developed countries, right? The high earning countries. We are the worst on the list. And we're getting worse. We're declining, not getting better. And what are we doing wrong? Prenatal care, birth, and postpartum. Professionals do not talk about the consequences of cesarean sections. They're like, it's life or death. But they don't tell you that your body is basically perceiving that you lost the baby. You had a traumatic surgery. Your hormones, your subconscious, your body is like, what just happened? Did we lose the baby? It was not the natural process where the baby comes out, your body senses it. The placenta comes out, your body senses it. That is not what we're really allowing. You have higher than a 1 in 3 chance when you walk into a hospital that you're going to get a cesarean section. And you can be perfectly healthy. Usually you are perfectly healthy. I'm going to talk about my story. I think maybe I should talk about my story next time in the next video, because I actually I did a little bit of like reading up on my physical anomaly. I have a like a septum uterus, and I had a home birth. So I am part of a 4% population that has septum uterus. And I had 3 successful births. Not to be arrogant and like cocky saying that, I'm just saying I'm very frustrated with how women are treated in birth. I'm very frustrated with how families are treated in birth. I'm very frustrated with how we are being made to feel like we are malfunctioning, like we are not able to do what we were created to do. That's why I'm making these videos. And I'm not here to offend anyone. I'm not here to try and like, you know, pick a fight or anything. I quite frankly think if you are coming against me doing this, then you're coming against someone who's standing up for women and families. And by all means, if you are that person, then that's whatever floats your boat. So I'm going to leave it at that. Again, history, we went through the history a little bit. I'm going to have a link, at least one of the links in the description, right? And then myths and some data on just the culture in America and how we are not doing good. We should not have at least 17 deaths for every 100,000 births. We literally we're the, like, there's a chart and we're like this high and everyone else is like this, you know? So we need to change something. And I'm praying that the vision that God gave me for like birthing resorts where the culture will completely shift and the focus will shift less on the medical environment and more on the respect and honor of the birthing woman and her family and her supporters. So yeah, okay. This one was so long. I'm sorry. I tend to get passionate and just keep going. So next one, I will talk about my birth story, and I will, because we've talked about hypnobirthing, so then I'll just touch on hypnosis and how it applies before I tell my birthing stories, so that you can like kind of follow along. So, all right, until next time, I hope you have a beautiful weekend, and bye.